I'm Emily Sackett.
My name is Randi Holguin.
My name is Robert Andrews.
I'm running
for ASUOP.
The ASUOP
for ASUOP president.
Yeah.
So your main points in your campaign include lowering tuition,
Yes.
student say in selecting the next president,
Yes.
and also more money back to student organizations.
Yes.
Your main points on your campaign are promoting equity, administrative connection, and inclusivity, and also creating a safe environment for everyone at Pacific. Your main points in your campaign are administrative accountability, increase in club funding, sustainability, and also collaboration with RSOs.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on some specifics that you aim to do?
Yeah, so specifically with collaboration on RSOs, that has to do with clubs on campus, that has to do with the Greek life, whether you're a professional fraternity, whether you're a social fraternity. What we want to get is more ASUOP collaboration, meaning events, support, and advertising. That also means funding goes up as well. What we're seeing is that there's not much social life on campus, and on weekends there's nobody around. It's a ghost town. Greek life is dying as a result. Clubs aren't having the events that they should. I think that if ASUOP is able to incorporate them, we're going to see a lot more stuff happen on campus. Clubs are going to get more not only people going to their events, but more membership. Greek life is going to get a spotlight. I think that will really help draw people to UOP.
With regards to tuition, I've actually already been advocating as your guys' student body vice president, specifically in the conversations about lowering tuition hikes. It's difficult because as an institution, about 70% of our expenses are people related, which means that every time healthcare goes up and cost of living goes up, that inevitably the cost of going here goes up, because so much of our expenses have to do with those people related expenses, right? But I think that the administration is finally starting to recognize, for a number of reasons, that they can't keep on hiking tuition at the same rate that they're doing it. So I'm going to continue to advocate for lower, if not completely gone, like no rising tuition, no tuition increases at all. Additionally, I think when freshmen come in, their tuition that they come in with as a freshman should stay with them throughout their 4 years. I just feel like that's a little bit more honest of a way to do tuition, and I think it sets up a more reasonable expectation for students, right? And of course we want all of our students to stay here, but when it increases by $1,500 every single year, it's not a surprise that we have as low of a retention rate as we do. So I've actually already suggested that solution to the Board of Regents, and that's something that they're actually currently exploring because of my suggestions. Yeah. And then for club and RSO funding, that's pretty simple and straightforward in terms of the ASUOP budget. The president kind of makes with the treasurer, and then the Senate approves it, so it would just be a matter of me lobbying to the rest of ASUOP, as well as convincing the rest of ASUOP that a larger amount of our budget does need to go to clubs and organizations. Yeah, and then lastly, I think one of the most formative things that's going to be happening in the next year is the next university president, right? They normally stay for about 10 plus years, so it's going to be very crucial in this next year to get as much student representation as possible on that, but also to have more shared governance on campus in terms of having students not just make big decisions like who the next university president is, but day-to-day decisions like which services are going to be offered to students. And I don't think there's enough student representation on a lot of the university committees, or that they're not communicated enough to students that there are seats for them at the table. So I really would want to make sure that there's more shared governance on campus and more students actually making decisions here at Pacific. Yeah.
One of our main things is focus groups. So that'll not only get the involvement of students, but it'll create a connection between faculty and ASUOP and students in Pacific. So what we want to do is have small groups of like 10 to 15 people, and we would incentivize these by talking to faculty and trying to get them to give students extra credit for attending these focus groups. So that way it's a win-win situation. We get information as well as they get credit for it. We think it'll boost a lot of morale here on campus and really get people involved. As well as that, we want to get qualitative over quantitative data. So qualitative being more, what's your experience like here? What don't you like? What do you like? Versus just giving people a survey and checking off yes or no or 1 to 10 on a box. We feel like it's more genuine and it's actually getting to hear their opinion versus just getting some data and putting it on a pie chart and presenting it.
So what do you have planned to make administrators, board members, and the new president more transparent with the students?
So I think that goes a lot to conversation and relationships. I think if we build a strong relationship with them and let them know, like, the students do find all this important and they really do want to know, maybe they'll be more transparent with us, as well as the information that they give to us, we can give that to the students. It's kind of like a question they asked us in the debate, like, who does your, kind of like your loyalty lie? Our loyalty always lies with the students, and we will always be transparent, and if that's an issue for them, we will fight that issue between us and them, is that we need to give this information to the students, and they have every right to have it. We pay to go to school here, we pay the fees, we pay everything. Without us, there would be no Pacific, so why shouldn't there be transparency and honesty?
So specifically with administrative accountability, it's making sure that we have road work set in place so that they know exactly what students want. And those are the three things that impact students. That will be housing, that'll be tuition, and budget cuts. Each of those are currently happening in very negative lights on campus. And I think if we're able to talk to the new administrators or talk to the new president, as the future president of ASUOP is going to do, then we're finally going to have a voice on those matters. And with the Board of Regents now taking us seriously and asking for our opinion and creating student focus groups, that's something that the administration is doing. It's not necessarily from my campaign or any of my other opponents. It's something that's happening, and what we really need to do is capitalize on it. And those three issues really need to get dealt with, or else we're not going to have students come to UOP anymore.
So I think one thing that I've done really well this year is that I've spent this entire year building myself up as a credible person who has a good reputation, so that not only do I put myself on committees and speak up when I maybe speak up at all times, but it's gotten to the point where instead of me just always having to speak up and raise my hand, I'm actually asked more questions. Then I have to speak up and speak out of turn, if you will. So I think having conversations, I mean, I meet monthly with either the chief of staff or the president, and I bring up student concerns in every single one of those meetings. I also think every single one of the committees that I meet with, which is at least one committee meeting a week, the constant advocacy for students there is also something that a lot of the day-to-day decisions, I don't think students realize, a lot of the day-to-day decisions are made on committee levels before they get up to the regents, right? And that's why I sit on so many of them, because the administrators who make the recommendations for the approvals for certain services on campus, or for tuition, or for programs being opened or closed, it all starts on committee levels. So I think I would do a lot of what I've already been doing in terms of advocating for students on committees and meeting individually with administrators, as well as connecting administrators with students who have concerns.
What are the specific ways you will help to improve and change Pacific during your administration?
Yeah, so once again, the biggest thing that I think is going to be happening in the next year is the selection of the next university president. And I think it is completely crucial that students have a huge say in that. So that's one of the things that I would like to improve and better Pacific, since that's going to be, I want to come back and have this be a thriving university, right, when I'm an alumni, as I'm sure all of us want that, right? So university president is going to be a huge decision, and I want to be a huge part in that process, as well as getting other students to be a huge part in that process. I also can see how much I've affected and how much other students have affected tuition rates going down, or tuition increases going down, as well as the general direction of moving towards lower tuition, right? And I think continuing that will be better, because then more students can stay at Pacific. And I also think advocating on behalf of students, like I've been doing this whole year. I sit on 5 committees where I advocate for students. I think overall advocacy is one of the best things I can do for students too.
So that goes back to like our focus groups, getting the data, taking that to administration, so higher ups, to get our voices heard, to make sure that we're seeing the changes. We kind of did that with the No Man Pam, the protest. We want to keep that going, as well as elaborating on that. Also getting commuters involved in transfers. My running mate, he is a transfer and a commuter, and that's a voice that's not really heard here on campus, so that's where our underrepresentation piece comes in, and being inclusive. Bringing those voices to the table is what we really want to hear, because they're not talking right now, and they're not very involved, and it's understandable why, because I'm also a commuter student, and it's like, you just go home, you come to school. A lot of people, majority of them, don't get involved because they feel like they're not included here and that they don't have a place here. And that's one thing we really want to focus on changing, not only for commuters and transfers, but for everyone who doesn't feel represented here, because there's a lot of students on campus who don't feel represented here and who don't have that opportunity to get involved, or at least they don't feel like it. And we want to make sure that that's broadcasted and that they do know that there's different ways to get involved at different levels. So even if you don't want to join a club and be the president, that doesn't matter. At least, like, as long as you're coming to the events and enjoying yourself, that's the first step.
How would you use your position in a professional and transparent manner, along with the board, like how their transparency works, to cater to all students?
Yeah, so I think that's kind of what I touched on with making sure that those connections are strong and that we know where our loyalty lies and who our jobs are for. ASUOP is students serving students, and that's really, I take that really seriously and I take that to heart, because if I've been on the other end where I don't know anything that's happening and I don't know how to get to these things, and being in this position that I'm in now, I know where we lack and I know where we can pick up the slack, and I want to do that for the students, because it really sucks when you don't know what's going on, but you want to get involved, but it's hard. You'd rather give up than actually try to do it. And I think if we made it a lot easier, that transition could be a lot smoother in the sense of taking people who are not involved and getting them involved.
Yeah, so within ASUOP, I plan to increase transparency a ton. As chairman of finance, I realized that our budget isn't as public as it should be. It's online, but we don't tell people how much money we're giving to A&E, how much money clubs are actually getting. And if you look at the numbers, it's a very small percentage. And a lot of students would be upset if they knew that clubs were only getting $40,000 a year from a $1.3 million budget. And what you know from me, what I have been transparent about since the start, is what I plan to do. And what I plan to do now is not going to change. If I'm saying I'm going to increase club funding, that means we're going to go from 40,000, 60,000, whatever it's at right now. It's at 65,000 exactly, sorry. And we're going to increase that, because giving clubs $500 for 4 events is not enough. And that counts food for meetings, that counts their clothing, like if they want to have club branded things. That is not enough currently, and it's why clubs aren't throwing their events. It's why people have the money, but they're not spending it, because if they don't have enough for the full event, they're not going to spend half of it. It's a problem that has happened in ASUOP for years. It's a problem that the current administration isn't dealing with, and it's a problem that's probably going to be solved very soon.
So while we're on the topic of clubs and events, one of the main issues that I have been brought up to by my peers in one of my classes, my public relations class, is that the advertisements for such events, for ASUOP events, they only usually happen in the UC or in the McCaffrey Center or on social media. And if you don't frequent the UC or the McCaffrey Center, the only output would be through social media, and you'd have to find it yourself. What are your thoughts on that issue? How do you think we should improve it?
Well, for one, I think it zones out commuters completely. And I think people who don't necessarily live on the normal meal plan, as I don't currently, don't go to the UC as often right now. Don't go to the McCaffrey Center unless I'm going to work. And my days at the Grove are pretty much over, so I don't get to see as many advertisements as I would now. What needs to happen with ASUOP is expanding on the new technology that's coming out, and we have TigerLink. We have things where we can specifically target people for exact events that they're interested in. They can sign up for notifications on certain clubs, certain organizations, whether you're Greek or whatever it is. They can specifically tell beforehand what events they want to be notified of and how they want to be notified. So it's no longer you're just getting spammed emails or it shows up on your Instagram feed. It's what you actually choose. And I think that customization, that ability for students to decide, is going to make the difference in what events they hear about, what events they're able to go to and schedule out of their days, because right now it's just not working. Telling people that there's an event is not enough, and they need to see it. They need to see it in a platform that they want to see it, or else it's just spam to them. And it needs to be events that they care about or organizations that they care about. And that's something that I plan to do, especially when it comes to collaborating with those clubs and Greeks, because there's no reason that we shouldn't be doing it now, and there's no reason that we can't expand on it in the future.
I think there's always improvements to be made, genuinely. And while it's uncomfortable to have those conversations sometimes, I think it's really important to constantly be pushing ourselves to be better and constantly be pushing ourselves to be more inclusive and to actually cater to everybody. You know, as somebody who very much values that we're a student-centered institution, we need to, I think, live up to that. So I very much appreciate any and all feedback that helps us figure out how to be better as an organization.
This is something I found a problem with too. There's not many places you can post your stuff, which I feel is a problem. I understand why they have the rules in place, but I definitely think looking at the Tiger Lore, which is where all these rules for where you can post at, looking at it, assessing it, making sure if it's effective, obviously hearing your input with as well as your friends' input, it's not effective. And so I think going back and changing some rules in the Tiger Lore just to make them more better for now, if that makes sense, so that people are seeing our advertisements and they do feel like, hey, okay, I can see this, I can go to this. Like, if it's put in front of their face, like, we're going to get better turnout. And I don't see why that should be a problem, changing rules in order to get better turnout. So definitely I would go back to the Tiger Lore and see if we can assess it and change some things up in that.
What is your plan to stay connected to all groups of students at Pacific, specifically?
Yeah, so this is one thing I'm really passionate about as well, is talking to every student group leader and seeing if there's ways that we can collaborate. Being an ally for these groups is what I would want to do. Not just sending out an email like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Do you have any ideas? Let's input this. No, I'd rather want to set up a meeting, get to know them, talk to them, really just have that conversation so they feel that their voices are being heard and that I'm truly listening and I care. And that's one thing I feel like the disconnect between the presidents or executives in general and smaller student groups. They don't feel like there's any connection when they are an RSO, they are part of ASUOP. It's really important that they feel that connection and that they feel like I genuinely care, because I do. And so I would make it more of a friendship and not as like a professional relationship, because we are still students and those are my peers, and I feel like they should feel just as much pride for Pacific as I do, and if they're not feeling that now, that's a problem.
I think my plan is the same as what it was when I first got to UOP. It's go out and do things. It's put myself in situations that I wouldn't normally be in. It's go to the garden randomly. It's come to the communication buildings or check out ASUOP. I go to a lot of clubs. I talk to a lot of people. I'm involved in Greek life, and it's easy when you're involved in so many things to just have a basis with a lot of the student body. And I think my work with commuters also helps. I don't plan to only focus on my job in ASUOP, because if you're only focused on the job, you're not focused on knowing what students want. If I'm only going to meetings and not talking to students, then I'm not going to know how to represent them. And that's something that doesn't happen in the current administration, as we've seen in the past 4 years of ASUOP, from what I've heard, of course. But it's something that definitely needs to change, because if you're going to be a student representative, you have to represent students. You have to be able to know exactly what their thoughts are on issues, and you only do that by asking and going around and talking to different groups and just putting yourself out there, being outgoing. And I don't know, that's something that I love doing. It's something that UOP is specifically great for because of the small student body and how connected everybody is. It's something that I'm passionate about. It's directly related to why I came to UOP in the first place, and it's something I will continue regardless of what my position is, as a senator, chairman, president, regardless. It's something that even if I'm not involved in ASUOP, I would do. I want to know people. I want to talk to people and make friends, and why not on the way get to know them and know exactly what they're thinking, know what their complaints are, and if I can, solve them. Help somebody out. Students serving students. That's what this school is made for, and we're all trying to just coexist for 4 years, get our degrees, and leave, and hopefully leave it a better place than when we left or when we first got here. I don't know. It's all coming full circle, even in just the year that I've been here, and it's pretty crazy. So
you do a lot of ASUOP stuff on your personal Instagram. You kind of say a lot of what you're doing, and you try to connect with all of the students here that follow you and which you follow. When did you start doing that? How did you come to do that? And do you plan to keep doing that as long as you are still in ASUOP?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things about the campus, if not without a doubt my favorite thing about the campus and about Pacific, is the students, right, and the people. So even outside of campaigning, I really try to well connect myself on campus so that I can advocate on behalf of you all better. Additionally, I've noticed that there have been some other social media pages that have come up, but I think the people that I would hope would vote for me are the people I already know, not the people that I would follow off a different page. So I really enjoy getting to talk to students that I already know, as well as expanding. And I definitely enjoy like the whole cute social media stuff and making flyers. And so yeah, I really enjoy connecting with students for sure.
So what other methods of communication do you use to gain outreach with other students?
Yeah, so I very intentionally have conversations with people in different pockets of the university. That's one of the reasons I try to reach out to people on social media so much, or try to expand my network, is because I think I can get a lot of valuable feedback just from my friends too, right? And people that I know on campus, and people who know that they can come to me if they have issues or if they have feedback or something they would like to see on campus. So definitely reaching out to the people I've been continuing to reach out with, and additionally reaching out to people I haven't reached out to yet and having individual conversations with them. I think surveys are great, and I think any way that finds out what students actually want is fantastic, and connecting them with the people who can make it happen. Yeah.
But the concept of equity that you included in your campaign was very eye-catching, especially to me. Why did you choose this concept over, say, equality?
So for us, equity versus equality, equality means to us that everyone just gets everything's equal, everyone gets the same treatment, the same whatever. For us, equity was a better word because it's the opportunity. It's everyone has equal opportunity to be able to achieve these things. So by equal opportunity, equal access, that's kind of touching on our part of access. We want to make sure that people know who the representatives are, that they can come and talk to us, and that they can. It's a very clear and easy way to come and talk to your representatives and really get to know us and really have that strong connection so that your voice will be heard and that you can talk to us and not feel like intimidated or like you're not going to get the help. We want to make sure that we are open and that you can come to us and that we can actually genuinely help you. So equity versus equality, it's walking a fine line, but equity is really just giving people that opportunity to get their voices heard and to bring their voices to the table.
How do you plan to improve representation of multicultural groups on campus?
Yeah, so one specific thing I want to do is I want to have different commissioners on my cabinet from different multicultural groups, whether that be clubs or overall organizations on campus. One of my biggest frustrations with with the university right now is that, you know, we say we have diversity and inclusion as a value, but there's zero financial backing to it. And frankly, I don't see that much going on campus here. So it's something I would want to put more of ASUOP's budget into, is actually investing in multicultural groups, as well as having people of those different backgrounds and having them actually have a seat at the table where ASUOP is making decisions, which is why I want to have more commissioners and such on my cabinet.
So some people reacted negatively to some of the things that you said and posted in the hashtag #NoMamPam campaign and about how you think a leader should present themselves on social media in those terms. Do you have a response to those sentiments?
Oh, well, specifically with the #NoMamPam, I think a lot of people did say that we shouldn't have used as many memes, or we shouldn't have been as student-oriented. We should have been more serious when it came to the Board of Regents. But that is just the social media. That's not where the regents or the administrators are looking. That had to do when I was called into meetings with the Board of Regents, and I represented students, and we had our demands, and we ended up getting our demands. And that wasn't because of the memes. The memes were to get students involved and to get students interested. And we realized that marketing is so much easier when it's something that people find funny, it's something that people care about. And when you can hit two birds with one stone, I don't think there's any reason not to. So to the people that say we weren't as serious as we should have been, I think that they don't really know the full story yet. And I think that if it was exactly as they said it was, we wouldn't have gotten the results that we did. We wouldn't have gotten meetings with the Board of Regents. We wouldn't have been able to communicate with as many administrators as we did, or get as much support if we didn't do the social media the way we did. I wasn't personally in charge of social media, but I do support all the efforts that went into it from my peers. And they worked hard. They made a lot of posters. They made a lot of posts. And we ended up getting a lot of students out, and it worked. So I would say that it's a process, and it's not always perfect. And there are going to be people who wish it was a different tone. But we decided on that one, and I stick by it. I think that it ended up working, and I'm very happy with it.
So one of the questions that Jacob did not get a chance to ask you in your first interview with us is, was the No Man Pam campaign an influential thing in your decision to run for presidency?
I think it was. I think when I first got to UOP, it was really easy to get passionate about all the issues that were going on campus. Everyone I had met was involved in ASUOP, and they were involved in student activism, and looking at my peers and seeing how much work they've done, how many administrators they know, and realizing that I don't know as much as I should, it was easy for me to say, yeah, that's something I need to get involved with. And upon doing that, I was already a senator in ASUOP, I was already chairman of finance, so I had my roles, but after doing that, I'm on a friendly basis with many administrators. I'm on more committees as a result, and once you get all of that experience compounding, it's hard not to see yourself in the position to go to even more committees and actually represent students in a way that a senator couldn't, or someone speaking at a protest couldn't. It's fighting for real change, and it's fighting on an individual basis, because that's where it's mostly going to happen. We can draw crowds, we can be angry, and we can shout, but that's not always going to work. It gets their attention and it gets us to the talking point, but once you're there and once somebody's president, it's really about who you know. And No Man Pam allowed me to know a lot of people. It allowed me to meet a lot of administrators and gain a lot of influence, and I want to use that now. And I think that there's no reason that I can't use that experience when it simply helped. It helped me qualify myself, and it helped me learn everything that I needed to be able to safely run for a position like this and know that I can do the job.
Yeah. That's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for doing this interview for us.
Thank you.
And also good luck to you and your partner.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.